Right, welcome to Candid Conversation. Today we're going to talk about Good Friday. We've been talking about the days of the so-called Holy Week, and I think everybody's a Christian. People who aren't Christians understand that this Friday, April 7th, 2023, on your calendar it says it is Good Friday. I know for me, I get off work because of Good Friday. And the understanding is that Jesus was crucified on Good Friday, and then Sunday he rose from the dead. So that's Easter Sunday. More people attend church on Easter Sunday than they do on any other day of the year. Christmas is probably second. So the idea is that Jesus was crucified on Friday. He rose from the dead on a Sunday. But the problem is that the Bible says that Jesus would be in the grave 3 days and 3 nights, especially with Matthew 12, where Jesus says, an evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, but there shall no sign be given it except for the prophet Jonas. For as Jonas was 3 days and nights in the belly of the whale, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. And simple math tells you Friday to Sunday is 2 days, not 3 days. So how is it that Jesus was crucified on a Friday and rose on a Sunday? Well, that would not fulfill the prophecy, and it would make Jesus a liar, because Jesus said he would be in the grave 3 days and 3 nights, just like Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale. And yet, if he was crucified on a Friday, Friday to Saturday is 1 day, Saturday to Sunday is 2 days, he rose from the dead Sunday morning, no less, he's only in the grave 2 days. So that makes Jesus a liar. Jesus is a liar. He sinned. If he sinned, then his blood, he could not rise from the dead. His blood cannot atone for my sins. Jesus would still be in hell. But of course, we know Jesus rose from the dead. We have life in him when we trust in Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection as atonement for our sin. God gives us the gift of eternal life. And so then he must have been, if Jesus said he was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, then he was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, which means that he must have been crucified on Thursday, not Friday. And the way it worked is that if you read the account, Wednesday night, Jesus is with his disciples. They have not the Lord's Supper, but the Passover. Not the Last Supper, but the Passover. Okay, we know that. Now, we also know from Genesis 1 that when God created a day, he said, and the first day, let there be light. Genesis 1:5, and the evening and the morning were the first day. We think of it in terms of morning and evening. When I went to bed last night at 9:30 p.m., it was Tuesday night. And when I woke up this morning, it was Wednesday morning. But in the Jewish calendar, because God says the evening is the beginning of the day, the evening and the morning were the first day. So the day begins, as far as God is concerned, in the evening, which meant, and according to God, and he's the one that counts, he's the one that tells the truth, the day, when I went to bed at 9:30 last night, I really went to bed on Wednesday evening. And I got up this morning on Wednesday morning, because Wednesday started at sunset last night. And Wednesday is going to end at sunset today. So I went to bed at Wednesday. I taught a Bible study on Wednesday evening. I went to bed Wednesday evening. I got up Wednesday morning. I'm going to work Wednesday, the day. And then shortly after I get home, the sun will set and Thursday evening will begin, because it starts with the evening. So understand that. So when Jesus, if you read the first 7 verses of Leviticus 23, 1 through 7, and if I remember, I'll put it down in the description so you can see. But the it says that there's a holy day. It's talking about the feast days, and it says the first day there's a holy day to the Lord, which is the Sabbath, and that occurs on the 7th day of the week, because when God made heaven and earth, he rested on the 7th day. He worked on 6 days, 7th day he rested. 7th day would be our Saturday. And so we have, it says there in Leviticus 23, the first couple of verses, that the 7th day, or the Sabbath day, is a day of rest. Then it says that the first feast is on the 14th day of the first month, as when you shall kill the Lord's Supper, the Lord's Passover. It's the Passover. And then the 15th day through the 21st day is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So you started out with a Passover meal, which is the lamb is slain to atone for your sins. And since your sin is atoned for now, the leaven in the Bible is a type of sin. So then you eat unleavened bread for 7 days to celebrate not having any sin, because the blood of the lamb from the Passover has covered your sin. So when Jesus ate, remember what we talked about yesterday on Maundy Thursday, which was really Wednesday evening, but to us Wednesday evening, but to God it's Thursday evening, and then after Thursday evening there's Thursday morning. So the Thursday evening would be the Passover. In fact, it even tells you there in Leviticus 23 that the Passover is on the 14th day of the first month, and it begins at even. So on our calendar, and this is where it gets confusing, on our calendar, we would think of it as the 13th day of the month. But on the Jewish calendar, the moment the sun sets on the 13th, that begins the 14th day. And since you're supposed to have the Passover at even, then that's why Jesus had the Passover meal with his disciples on the evening that we would consider to be the 13th, but it was really the 14th. So that would be considered to be Thursday evening, although that was really Wednesday evening to us. But according to God's calendar, since the day begins at sunset, it was really Thursday evening when they had the Passover. So they had the Passover meal. And then now according to Leviticus 23, the Feast of Unleavened Bread is the 15th day. So the 14th day is Passover, which started when sunset occurred on Wednesday, which turned the day into Thursday. So now it's Thursday evening, and they have the Passover meal. That's the 14th day. Now the 15th day is going to begin the next day at sunset, and that would be the Feast of Unleavened Bread for 7 days. The first day, according to Leviticus 23, 1 through 7, the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread is a holy day. You are not to do any work in there. Not servile work, it's called, which means you don't work at a job as a servant. So what it's telling you there is that the day after Passover is a Sabbath day. It's a high Sabbath, because it's what day ahead in the Jewish calendar, and this is where the Friday, this is why they get messed up on the Friday thing, is that every Saturday is a Sabbath day. And then there are certain days that are considered high Sabbaths, or days that are considered to be Sabbath or days of rest, based upon days that God has said should be. So the 15th day of the first month of the year is a high Sabbath, because it's the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So what happened is that the 14th day of the first month began at sunset, and right after that, the disciples and Jesus had the Passover meal, because that's what you're supposed to do. So that was Thursday evening. Then Jesus goes to the garden. He prays. Well, actually, he prays to the Father before that, John 17. Then he goes to the garden and prays, Lord, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. Then you've got the Judas shows up with the Roman guards. Judas comes up, betrays Jesus with a kiss, and so then they know this is the one that we are to arrest. So then they arrest Jesus. He's brought before the high priest. They have this mockery of a trial. The high priest tears his clothes. Jesus is worthy of Jesus has committed blasphemy, declaring himself to be God, and so he is worthy of death. So then they bring him before Pilate, and so then Jesus is crucified on Thursday morning. So you start at Thursday evening with the Passover, and all of this goes. There isn't Jesus prays throughout the night there. You see the disciples, Peter, James, and John, I mean, they're tired. They hadn't slept, and they end up going to sleep. Jesus told them to watch and pray, and they ended up sleeping a little bit anyway. I would assume that Jesus prayed, hours on end for this. This is the most important day in the history of the world, that he's about to be crucified. He wants to make sure that his flesh, he doesn't listen. I shouldn't say flesh because he doesn't have a sin nature. He wants to make sure that he doesn't sin. He wants to make sure that he does the Father's will completely. So he spends his night in prayer. Forgoes sleep, spends his night in prayer. And then he is crucified on a cross, which incidentally, Jesus, when he is, when they come to the cross there, they go to break his bones, which would make him die quicker, but they don't break his bones because he's already dead. Well, the reason is because into thy hands I commend my spirit. He yielded up the ghost. No one took his life from him. He gave it willingly. And also, he was very tired. He didn't sleep, So, and in fact, that's why he's all bloodied. He lost a lot of blood when they whipped him. But that's why they had to get Simon of Cyrene to carry his cross. He didn't have the strength to do so. He hadn't slept, and he's lost a lot of blood from them whipping him. So they go to break his bones. Well, the reason, let's go back. The Pharisees would not enter the judgment hall. So they declared Jesus worthy of death, and then they brought him before Pilate there in Rome. But they would not enter the judgment hall because, and the book of John tells you this, is because it was Passover. And so they didn't want to be defiled on Passover. So therefore they stayed out of the judgment hall. Now, how that makes you defiled, that's one of their traditions anyway, because it's not any servile work. So, but beside the fact, what it's telling you there is it's Passover. And so they wanted to, because the next day was the Feast of Unleavened Bread, then they wanted to make sure that Jesus was taken off of the cross before sunset on Thursday, which once sunset hit, then it's Friday, which is the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, which is a holy day, a Sabbath day. So they, so what they do is they're going to the cross to break the bones of the people on the crosses there with Jesus, and Jesus too as well. And then that way they make sure they're dead, and they take them down, and all that's done before sunset. But when they come to Jesus, they don't break his bones because he's already dead. So then the Roman servant pierces his side with a sword. But what that shows you then is they had to get him off the cross because it was a high Sabbath starting at sunset. So I think what happens is, in the Catholic tradition, they look at it and they say, okay, well, it was a Sabbath day the next day. So then, and we know the Sabbath is on Saturday, therefore, Jesus, now remember the Catholics, if you got to know the origin, well, therefore they would say that Jesus was crucified on a Friday because the next day was a Sabbath, so then the Sabbath is on a Saturday. And what they didn't consider is that, the next day was a Sabbath, which was the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, the 15th day of the first month, which happens to be Friday evening and Friday morning, which means the next day after that, the Saturday, is also a Sabbath, Saturday evening, Saturday morning. So there are 2 Sabbath days in a row. Most people in churches have no idea that's the case. They understand the Sabbath, and maybe they understand the Sabbath is on a Saturday. And they'll say, well, it was moved to Sunday with resurrection. well, whatever. But but they don't understand that there were actually additional high Sabbath days that were specific days of the year related to feast, holy days that God set up. In fact, that's where our word holiday comes from. Holiday, holy day. Holiday, holy day. Anyway, so what had taken place then? Now, and remember, you say, well, how could they miss such a crucial detail? Well, you got to understand the Catholic Church, and that it was what Constantine did in the 300 ADs is he paganized it. He says, I'm a Christian now. And he takes all the pagan ceremonies and all that stuff, and he turns it into, all the pagan ceremonies, he turns into, he says they're Christian now. And so the Catholic Church, all they did was take pagan stuff and declare it to be Christian. And in the pagan tradition, you've got a winter solstice. The winter solstice is the first full moon in spring. And let me back up. It is the first Sunday after the first full moon in spring. And so the idea there is, well, now that's not the winter solstice. Winter solstice is the darkest day of the year, December 21st. Sorry. The goddess Easter is the Queen of Heaven, and we'll go over Easter next time. But basically the way Easter is determined is it's the first Sunday after the first full moon of spring. And it's based on the idea that we're out of winter, we're in a new season, we're in spring, there's life, there's vitality coming to us from the goddess Easter, the Queen of Heaven. And that's why Easter's Sunday always moves around. It can be late March, and it can be toward April 20th or 21st, so it's about the latest it can be. So it's going to be in that month sometime there. It's the Sunday after the first full moon of spring. And spring starts March 20th. So, so all that to say that because the Catholics took pagan ceremonies and festivals, that's why it's called Easter. Really, it was Passover. Jesus is the Passover lamb. And when we're celebrating on Sunday, we're not celebrating the goddess Easter, we're celebrating Resurrection Day. But all Christians are going to say, Happy Easter, Happy Easter. Well, that's because it's the pagan stuff that's been Christianized. So anyway, getting back to Good Friday then, that's why, since the Catholics didn't understand in 300 AD under Constantine, they weren't Bible scholars. They just took pagan stuff and they made it Christian. So that's why they ended up calling it Good Friday, and that Jesus died on a cross on a Friday, because they knew the next day was a Sabbath day, and they think Sabbath is a Saturday, so then which it is, and they didn't know about the high Sabbath days, and so then they say Jesus was crucified on a Friday. But remember the prophecy of Matthew 12, that Jesus said he would be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, just like Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale. So what it means then is Jesus, so you had Wednesday, then sunset occurs, so then that's Thursday evening now. They have the Passover, it's the 14th day of the first month, they have the Passover meal. Then Jesus all night in prayer, and Jesus' sentence, he dies on a cross on a Thursday morning. And he's put in the grave on Thursday, the day before sunset, because the next day is a high holy day. It's the first day of the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, which is a Sabbath day. So Jesus is actually it doesn't matter when they put him in the grave, he's in the heart of the earth the moment he commits his spirit unto the Lord from the cross. And so he does that on a Thursday. So he's in the grave Thursday. Then Friday, they cannot, that evening then is Friday evening. And you notice Mary and Martha and those ladies, when they went to the tomb, they go to the tomb on the first day of the week, which is our Sunday morning. They couldn't go before then because there were 2 Sabbaths in the middle. So Friday evening and Friday morning, Friday, was the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, the 15th day of the first month, and according to Leviticus 23, that is a holy day, no servile work. It's a Sabbath day. It's a high Sabbath day. So Jesus is crucified Thursday morning. He goes into the belly of the earth on Thursday. Then sunset occurs. Now we're in Friday evening. That's the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is the first day, which is a Sabbath day. So they can't do any work on that day. So they can't go put spices on the body and all that, what they normally do. So that's Friday evening. Then it's Friday morning. Then at sunset, that begins Saturday evening, which is the regular Sabbath. So you had 2 Sabbath days in a row. The high Sabbath of the first day of the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, Friday evening, Friday morning. And then you had the regular Sabbath at sunset, Saturday evening, Saturday morning. So then it comes at night, Saturday evening, or which is our Sunday evening. So Sunday evening occurs, and which they're free to go to the tomb at that time, but you're not going to go after dark. So then they wait until the next morning, Sunday morning, and then they go to the tomb. But Jesus has risen from the dead. So Jesus dies on the cross on Thursday. So he's in the heart of the earth Thursday. Then the next, that night is Friday evening. So there's morning. So he's in the grave Thursday morning, Friday evening. There's one day. Then he's in the grave Friday morning to Saturday evening. That's 2 days. Then he's in the grave Sunday morning. So there's your third day. So you've got he raises from the dead there. So he's in the grave there the evening of Thursday evening. So Thursday morning to Thursday evening, one day. I'm sorry, Thursday morning to Friday evening, one day. Then he's in there Friday morning to Saturday evening. That's 2 days. Then he's in the grave Saturday morning to Sunday evening. And there's your 3 days. And then he raises from the dead Sunday morning. It's confusing because we think of morning and evening as one day, but they think of it as evening to morning. I mean, God says it's evening to morning. And so he's in the grave. You can think of it this way. 2 Sabbath days. Friday evening to Saturday morning. Friday evening to Friday morning. Saturday evening to Saturday morning. 2 Sabbath days. 2 full days. And he was crucified, or he died. He was in the heart of the earth the morning before that. So there's your morning. And then he's rises from the dead the next day on that Sunday morning after the Sunday evening. So there's your 3 days. Anyway, 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. And so Jesus was crucified. The way we would look at it, Jesus was crucified Thursday morning, and he rose from the dead Sunday morning. So Thursday to Friday, 1 day. Friday to Saturday, 2 days. Saturday to Sunday, 3 days. So there's your 3 days. So Jesus was really crucified on Thursday, not on Good Friday, and that's because the Catholics were pagans and they didn't know what they were doing, so they didn't understand that there were really 2 Sabbath days. And that's also why Mary and Martha and those ladies didn't go to the grave until until Sunday morning, because of the 2 Sabbath days in a row afterward, and they couldn't go and prepare the body and put spices on it. So then by the time they get there, 3 days and 3 nights have taken place, and Jesus is already risen from the dead. So Good Friday, now Jesus was crucified on Thursday, not on Friday. And but you know, maybe Friday is really the good day, because that's the day that he's in the heart of the earth, suffering in hell, and he's paying for our sins. And probably, you know, I don't know exactly when he gets the victory over death and hell, but maybe it was the next day, and that would have been, you know, he defeated hell. When Isaiah 53 says that he shall see the travail of his soul and shall be satisfied. Maybe that's God was satisfied with the sacrifice of Jesus maybe on Friday, and that's what really makes it good. You know. Thanks for watching.